The strangest part is there was nothing about our life that looked wrong, which is exactly why it took so long for us to figure out that something was.
We weren't miserable. We were not in crisis. We loved our friends. We lived in freaking San Diego, for
World's
God's
smallest
sake.
violin.
Exactly. By every measure, we should have been absolutely content.
You know, it wasn't a dramatic unhappiness. It wasn't even really an unhappiness. It was just a little bit of being kind of bored with the routines that we had set up. You know, it just felt like things were sort of the same all the time. And you started feeling that longing for something else. And we didn't know exactly what that was.
Right. Honestly, you know, because it wasn't like so clearly named, I think for us, it was a little more confusing. Like, what is it that feels off? It was really hard. Like, we sold our business a couple years before. We were still consulting a little.
We were traveling a lot, and we really were happy when we were traveling.
Yeah, we were happy when we were traveling, and we loved our friends, right? We already said that. We loved our friends. And
because we want them to keep visiting. So,
exactly.
Of course,
we love them so much.
You know who you are.
Really, we had every logical reason to stay exactly where we were.
Yeah, and we loved it there. And you know what? We still love it there. I love going back there. I really do.
Me too.
But once we were out in the world and then coming home, you start having an A-B comparison of what life, the experience of life, feels like here versus there. And it starts pointing out some things that you maybe wouldn't have noticed if you just stayed there.
We really started noticing it when we were traveling. Like, it's really, I mean, it was hard. It's kind of hard to describe. Like, we just felt looser. We just felt this kind of happiness. And it wasn't just like, you know, travel magic where you're on vacation and you don't have to think about
drinking and eating all the time.
And you're not thinking about fixing the dishwasher, like all that stuff. So it's not, it was something else. It was something else. I mean, of course, when you travel, you know, you feel completely different. You feel better in most cases. Hopefully you're having a good trip. And you're not worried about fixing the dishwasher. You're not worried about, you know, feeding the dogs and all of that. So it's great. You definitely feel different when you're traveling. This felt like, you know, this feeling that we noticed when we were gone and then when we came back.
And, you know, I have to compare it to when we lived in the Northeast. When I lived in the Northeast, even before I met Cheryl, when I would go on vacations or down to the islands, I used to work there, I would come home and I'd always be kind of bummed out because it was always like kind of dirty and gross and not really what I wanted to come home to. And that always felt like a disappointment. And in my mind, I was like, wow, I wish I could come home and feel like this is the place I wanted to be, even more than vacation. Right. Now, San Diego is that. So when we moved to San Diego, there was really no letdown to coming home. Right. But after a while, we did start feeling this feeling that she's describing. And I remember one night, I walked out of a restaurant at about 11 o'clock at night, and there was a whole square filled with people in costumes, dancing with a band, and there was grandmothers and kids and parents, and it was like full-blown festival. And I didn't even know that it was going to happen.
No.
We didn't even know about it.
No, we had no idea. It was a complete surprise. We just like turned a corner and bam, there it was. And it was just this realization like, okay, there's a different way to live.
And I remember thinking, when was the last time that life, general life, felt this rich and juicy as it did at that moment?
I think that's what surprised us most, right? Like, we felt better when we were in Europe. We felt like, there was this like sudden comparison that we had never really rolled with, right?
I think we felt just more alive because we're experiencing and absorbing, and we felt very present. You know, I think that's what it was. We felt very present when we were traveling, which was something that we really love about traveling because it really makes you show up and enjoy where you are. And, you know, when you live in a place for 25 years, of course, you kind of fall into your routines and you stop being as present and looking at it through fresh eyes, like those wonder eyes that you do when you first move somewhere. So that's expected. But there was a feeling in our bodies when we came home that it felt like there was a tightening at home and there was a loosening when we were out in the world, right?
Yeah, and it was different, like, because we went and we spent 2 months in Lisbon, and we spent 3 months in
3 months.
Lisbon and 2 months in Valencia, and so it was long enough that it wasn't like, ooh, travel buzz.
Right.
It was really like, okay, it's not the same as feeling like you live somewhere. We've had some really huge realizations actually living here now for a year, but it was enough to say, like, every day I noticed how I felt in my body. I noticed how just energetically, I think we felt.
Yeah.
We were better as a couple, I think, during
Yeah.
those times because we were happier.
And we were exploring something together, which is always a great thing, right?
Yeah, usually.
Don't get me going. Don't get me going.
Don't get me going.
Different video. Okay.
And when we went home, it wasn't that we felt overtly bad. I mean,
No.
we had a wonderful life, but there was just sort of this tensioning.
There was a tensioning, which is something that you don't hear often.
For my Spanish-speaking friends, that's a new word. Okay, there wasn't a tensing necessarily, or there was a tensing actually more. And it wasn't because the United States is bad or Spain is perfect. It's really that
It's an atmosphere.
it's an atmosphere. It's a vibe.
There's a rushing and there's an urgency in the U.S., which is just part of the culture that you don't see everywhere. And so when you do come back to it, you do feel that.
You really notice it. We notice it every time we go back
Yeah,
now.
every time.
I think another thing is how kind of transactional everything felt, and the really, like, it was an
hustle.
unspoken hustle, right? The unspoken pressure to constantly produce, to optimize, to rush. And we were so used to it, we didn't even notice we were living in it.
And the confusing part was that this was a life that we had designed. This was a life we had chosen. So why, all of a sudden, did it not quite fit?
For me personally, the turning point was, I remember one day I was out on a walk and I just, this question kind of popped in my mind. It was just like, okay, if nothing changed, if I didn't make any big changes in my life, how would I feel a year from now?
Or 5 years from now?
Or 5 years from now, but even in 1 year, like, if I didn't have the courage to do something to create change, and
Yeah.
at that time we were starting to talk about moving, but it was scary. It was really, really scary. And
I remember that. I
Yeah.
remember that moment that conversation came up, and it was really like, what would it cost to go and change and do a new life and try a whole new, like, place to live that's another country? But what would it cost to not do it?
right, that was a huge, huge breakthrough for both of us.
Yeah.
So, what would it feel like in a year from now if nothing changed? Like, what if we just kept kind of talking ourselves out of this?
The feeling was, and this kind of goes back to you saying it was a wonderful life. The feeling was that if we didn't change anything, there would be some regret about that, and we would just always wonder if that was something we should do and should have done.
Yeah.
And so it kind of really came down to, if we don't leap now, if we don't try this bold move right now, like, when and what's going to happen? And we're just going to all of a sudden wake up and be 80 one day, and me before you, of course.
Way before.
Way before. But the fact is, we kind of flashed on that, and like, what would we do then? Because one thing I always noticed is that when we would travel, we would see people that were like really old, and even older than us. Honest.
Is that possible?
But there would be people with walkers, and
Yeah.
and in Portugal especially, the streets are very cobblestony, and saw people that couldn't really walk there, and I felt like, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to wait so long to do something crazy and wild and like exciting like that to the point where my body can't keep up.
Right. And you don't know, right? You don't know what your window is.
Right.
We knew at that moment we were healthy. We knew financially we were secure enough to do this. We knew that, right, the timing was perfect. Our kids were grown and kind of all the stars aligned. But you don't know how long that window is. You know, in another year, another 2 years, maybe it's too late. Maybe something happens. There's an illness or somebody needs you or...
Right.
Whatever. So it's
now
so
no one needs us.
No one needs us. No, in this particular moment, no one needs us,
Well,
as evidenced by the fact that they never return our phone calls.
That's true. And I know they're not watching, so we can say anything we want about them.
Absolutely right.
That's so true. But there is something to this. You know, there is something to the fact that you have a moment in time that you can do something like this. And we did do some pros and cons list, right?
We did very elaborate pros and cons lists.
We waited a long time to actually make the move. We really did. We waited a long time. We did a lot of, back and forth and analyzing about it. And finally, it just came down to, what the hell? Let's just do this and see what happens. What's the worst thing that can happen? We come back.
Right. I think the point is we realized how much energy it was taking us to convince ourselves that our lives really just still fit, that it still felt right and good.
Again, this doesn't have to be a big move or anything like that, a huge relocation or anything drastic, but everybody, it seems, has goals that they're aspiring to, that they're putting off just a little bit in the distance. And I guess at some point you need to stop and ask yourself, why am I putting it off? And what's it going to cost if I put it off? And why wouldn't I just do it now? And we've become kind of proponents of that. And the people that we meet here that are moving, fellow expats, there's a commonality that they took a leap, and it wasn't that they were brave. It wasn't that they were, stronger than anyone else. It was just that they just felt like staying was costing too much.
I like that. It's true. The one thing I can say is taking the chance fundamentally changed something in us, right? It made us feel more connected. It made us feel more alive in a lot of ways. It made us feel more
fulfilled. I mean, and I think that it did actually help our relationship a lot. I think that, I suppose you could say it could make or break your relationship.
Definitely.
If you didn't have a relationship that was working well together, when people's kids leave for school and then all of a sudden the couple's facing each other like, what was I thinking? We weren't that, so it made us stronger, and I think that that's a good thing. That I think a lot of relationships would benefit from taking a chance and trying something new together.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it's just going to the next state and having dinner.
Because who doesn't want to do that? Who doesn't have that as a life goal? What kind of life goal is that?
A really small one. The really small one. But sometimes, you don't want to make people feel like they have to do something huge.
Okay, fine. Do that, friends. Go to the next state and have dinner.
Olive Garden. Free breadsticks. Go nuts. Maybe the other person pays that time. I don't know. Try something wild.
Stop. Sometimes the hardest thing is not changing your life. It's admitting that you want to. I could see that, right? Like I had a really hard time admitting that.
Yeah, actually, it was kind of an issue. You felt kind of bad. Like you thought that I might not feel the same way. And honestly, I didn't feel exactly in the same space as you.
No.
It was a little bit different. I was in a different place, right? I enjoyed what I had done for work more than Cheryl did towards the end. So for me, it was like, I didn't want to just like throw everything away and turn my back and never look at it again.
Yeah.
That wasn't really how I felt. So we were in a different place. However, once we started talking about it, I did notice how it felt to talk about it. I did notice that when I was traveling to Europe, I felt alive and good, and we were good together, and it was kind of exciting and fun. And so I do think that everyone has to come up with what works for them.
Yeah.
But this is it, once we synced, it was pretty obvious that we needed to do something.
Yeah, it was a pretty easy decision. hard, but it was easy.
It was hard. It was easy, but it was hard.
It's hard making a huge change like this. So we were leaving our kids, we were leaving our friends, we were leaving our home. We were trying to, figure out how you live in another country.
Right. There's a lot to that.
There's a lot to it. It's not an easy thing at all.
There was a lot of times we wanted to, quit along the way because it got difficult. It's still difficult. There's things that come up all the time that are like challenging.
Watch our other video about getting our driver's license.
Don't say driver's license.
Are you twitching?
I'm twitching.
We definitely, somebody asked us to make a whole video about that. I just don't even think I can.
Have you ever had a moment where your life felt like it didn't fit who you were becoming? If so, let us know in the comments. We read every one.
And we answer them.
And we do answer them. She answers them usually.
I do.
Yeah.
That's why I say all the things about Cliff.
If it weren't for him, everything would really be great. If you like this video, subscribe and come back for more, okay? Ciao.
Ciao.